Project management. That is a very general term, but one we're going to talk in detail today. I am not a project manager or an expert, but I am an expert on cash flow management and the role that a project manager can play in doing and contributing to an effective project from a cash flow perspective. So that's what we're going to focus on. My name is Scott Peper. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mobilization Funding, and for the last 10 and a half years, we've been helping project managers execute projects from a cash flow perspective effectively inside and outside their organization with their general contractor and on site to help them have a better, more effective project. And I'm going to share some of those tips and tricks with you guys right now. All right, let's start in the pre-construction phase. I'm an advocate and I've seen best practices where the project manager is included in the pre-construction phase. What happens on a project site, field engineering, the site itself, moving people on and off the site, when you can start work, how you get them into position. Those are things that a project manager knows very, very well, especially early on after the first 3, 4, 5 weeks you've been on a project. They can really give you some insights and ideas of where your estimates and your bids as far as a cash flow projection have gone. How effective are those going to be? Are you able to get 8 good hours on the site? Or does it take too much time to get things positioned and staged and crafted? Little tools like that are going to be helpful for the project manager to be included on. When you're looking at your pre-construction phase and you're trying to think about what is the schedule that we're going to try to keep? How much labor are we going to have on the project? Those are key phases where your project manager's insights can really add value to let you know what, 10 weeks isn't enough to do that because of X, Y, and Z. Or we need to allocate an extra 4 weeks if this, and this occurs. So things like that are where your project manager's insights can really come about. Also, in the pre-construction phase, we talked about budgeting, but now I want to talk about the actual schedule of values and the scope of work. We've all been there before, but when you get a set of design drawings and plans, there's a lot of details in there, but there's also a lot of details that you might need that you won't know about until you actually get on the site. And what's more important is you're not going to know those details exactly till you're on the site, but you do know what areas are open or ambiguous or are left, there's not enough clarity to them. And when you're thinking about how you're going to execute the project, you want to know what some of those watchouts are. And your project manager and even some of your superintendents will be able to give you some insight, particularly in to your estimators and in the budgeting process of where the watchouts might be. For example, if you're expecting a certain amount of crane time, or if you're expecting a certain amount of lifts or the right scaffolding, whatever it may be in whatever trade or scope, there are things your project manager is going to know that if this occurs, then this is a good budget. But if this does not occur, or we don't have access to fill in the blank, they're going to be able to give you those watchouts and tools for clarity purposes that you can then ask in advance. There's nothing worse than going into a project with a clean, clear budget based on a solid set of assumptions and finding out 3 or 4 of those assumptions are grossly wrong, which then means your budget's going to be way off. And these are the things that your project manager can really help with. So cash flow projections and budgeting are a critical item. We've discussed that already, but here's what I want to talk about from a project manager perspective. Your accounting team, your estimators, include your project manager with them. Walk your project manager through exactly how you've budgeted this project, how much labor, what the schedule is to order material, how much material will be on site. Make sure that your project manager and the estimators and the accounting team are all communicating with one another, so at the start of the project, you know what the plan is that they're trying to execute. But also throughout the project, you can update that, if not weekly from a cash perspective, but also at least at a minimum every other week. Reason being, if you're slowed down or you need to speed up or the project's moving faster, you want to make sure your project manager is in constant communication so that your team can order the materials that are needed. Your accounting team knows that the money's going to be spent a little sooner than later. How's that going to impact or change the actual pay applications that are submitted at the end of the month, if it will at all? Those are things that your project manager is going to be able to give feedback on, but also you want to make sure your accounting team is updating the budget so you don't run into a cash flow situation or an error or problem. Your project manager is also going to let you know where you're at for your labor costs. Are you actually getting more work done with the labor that you budgeted? Are you getting more work done because you've put more labor onto the project early on? Those are things that you're going to want your accounting team to understand and know. Maybe when you budgeted the project, you thought there was going to be 2 or 3 other projects going on inside the company, and they're not. So maybe you're actually able to take portions of other crews and put them on the project to get a little bit farther ahead. That's something that your accounting team and your finance team is going to want to understand when they're looking at the overall budgets of the business and how the overall costs are impacted to the business. It's not something your project manager may know a lot about, but the insight that they're giving to the finance team, it's good and valuable information that your finance team can utilize when they're assessing the overall project. So that's why it's key to include your project manager with them, not only in the beginning, but also along the way, and keeping them in tune with what the budget is and when the costs are going to be spent and when they're estimated to be spent, so that you're not getting overrun from a cash flow perspective and creating a shortage or shortfall. Or if the project's going a lot faster and there's going to be a surplus, your accounting team can understand and know where to use that money overall throughout the business, but not just on the project. The next section is gaining efficiencies. What a fancy term. We all love talking about it. But what does that actually mean? Well, efficiencies mean if you've budgeted for something and you're actually able to do it quicker or faster because you've figured out a system, you figured out a process. Maybe your team's working more efficiently. Maybe the 3 or 4 trades that were also going to be on the project with you at the same time and therefore slow it down, maybe they're not on there. Maybe you were able to put 2 or 3 more crews on that project earlier on, so you were able to get farther ahead through what would have been an otherwise tight spot. Those are the kinds of things that your project manager can communicate back to the team internally that can also help them cost out what that execution might be, or price out what it might be if you can take advantage of these efficiencies. Or they might be able to look at the project manager, if you're on the front end of it, may say, hey, you know what? I can shrink the whole time we're on this project down if you let me put 3 crews on this project for the first month, because I'm going to be able to get through this phase. And after that, I only need 4 or 5 guys. But if I don't, it's going to take me too long. By then, the other laborers are going to be there, the other trades are going to be on the project, and at that point, I have no efficiencies to gain. Those are the kinds of insights that a really effective project manager can share with you if you give them the opportunity. That's how they can help save money, create efficiencies, and create overall more profitability in the project. So share with them what those costs are, share with them what that budget are, and really challenge them to be able to show you where and if you spent some dollars, how they can create more value for the business and for the performance of the project by gaining efficiencies. That's my impression of efficiency. The payment process, billing the job, invoicing the job, completing your payment applications. Your project manager is going to really be able to help a ton here. Of course, a lot of times they're the ones responsible for this. However, what's important is if you're working throughout the period of time, typically it was a month, if you're meeting on a weekly basis, your accounting team and your project managers can assess, all right, are we on track to what we were going to bill or invoice at the end of this month? Yes or no? If it's yes, great. Is there more billing that we could put onto this project if we were able to get to a certain spot based on the schedule of values? That's what your project manager is going to tell you. For example, one decision might be, let's order all the material now because I can get it on site by the end of the month and invoice it. But if I can't, let's wait till the first of the next month to actually be able to order that material because I'm not going to be able to invoice for it anyway, and we don't really need it right now. Or maybe there's room to store items right now, but there won't be in a month or two because by then this trade's going to need that space for something else. Or we have an empty trailer right now for storage. There's things like that your project manager will be able to share with you that help you from a procurement perspective, when to order material, what materials you can have, what tools and other equipment you might need, when to get it on the site, when to get it off the site. Those are things that are really going to be beneficial and impactful to the project that your project manager can help you manage internally. And then managing those things internally are going to help you have a more effective payment process for how you want to invoice the job and, most importantly, collect from that project. The key is, let's get this project done in the most efficient and productive manner, but also get it to cash flow positive and get profitable as fast as possible as well. The next phase is risk management. And when I say risk management, I'm not talking about necessarily safety concerns and those things. This is about cash flow. There's going to be risks to your cash flow on the job. There's going to be risks to your profitability on the job. Great resources and the best resources you have available as a business owner are your project managers. And most importantly, incorporating a structure, as I've talked about already, with your project managers, your finance team, your accounts receivable, and your accounts payable team. They're going to be the ones collectively that can look and assess at the overall business. Your project manager's got to give them the tools and the information from the project so everyone can assess where those risks are. If there's delays for the structure actually being erected, not even a trade, but you are working on the first floor now and you're going to be finished within a week, and your budget expected you guys to be on the second story or the third story by now, but there's some structural issues. That feedback back to your project manager, that from your project manager, is going to let you know what, we don't need to order all those materials like we did in the original schedule, because we're not even going to be on that second floor until 4 weeks from now instead of next week, or 6 weeks from now instead of next week. Those are the kinds of things that can really help you prevent cash flow issues and mitigate risk. Whereas if the original budget called for the accounting department or AP purchasing to purchase a bunch of materials today for the use in 6 weeks when you'll be on the second story at that point, but there's some structural issue that your project manager can communicate back, they don't need to order that material right now. And that is going to help you from a cash flow perspective avoid what otherwise would have been a tough cash flow scenario. Because if you order it now and you're expecting it to be billed 8 weeks later, and all of a sudden you're not able to get onto that project or that second story for 8 weeks, that means you're going to be invoicing that money even later, which means you're going to have to hold over the cost of that material or any other supplies and equipment. Those are the kinds of things that your project manager can help you from a risk perspective to your cash flow. Information flow. Create those meetings, create those people in a structure that allow for that constant flow of communication. So we've now analyzed the cash flow. We have a cash flow budget. Your project managers and your accounting and your accounts payable and your accounts receivable departments. Now you want to make sure that you're monitoring that cash flow on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. No matter what you're doing, it needs to be completed weekly of where you are and communicating that back and forth to one another and together. The project manager and that group are key to your cash flow management. And making sure that your cash flow stays consistent, you stay cash flow positive, you get to cash flow positive and stay profitable on every project is what we're all in business to do. Keep your project managers open and active. Include them, bring them in, let their information be heard by all parties, and make sure that you are actively asking those questions to them, bringing them inside, but also sitting down. Sometimes you might even want to send your accounts payable, your accounts receivable folks out into the field so they can actually sit with your project managers to understand where they're coming from and what they're including. But project managers can be very critical to your cash flow management. They can reduce the risks. They can help you avoid confusion. They can make sure that your assumptions are accurate in your bidding process. And most importantly, they're going to make sure you stay cash flow positive and you can stay profitable on the job from the information, the tools, and the knowledge that they have, both before the project starts and after the project starts. I hope this information helps you guys a lot. Please subscribe down here below and share the information with anyone that you think it can help. Have a great day. Hope you guys do well. God bless you. I'll talk to you again soon.